Japan over time, 1100 to present. The Golden Age. Around the 12th century, Japan experienced a golden age, mainly in literature during the Fujiwara period. However, Japan started experiencing noble families gaining more and more power, and becoming larger, trying to take over small territories. Japan developed into a feudal system like that of Europe, coincidentally at the same time. Yoritomo Minamoto was chief general of Japan, and in 1192 the emperor gave him the title shogun. Despite the fact that the emperor gave the general the title shogun, all the power was rested in the shogun's hand. The emperor was just a figurehead, a celebrity, similar to the Fujiwara family. A way to remember feudal Japan and the imbalance of power between the shogun and the emperor is FF, feudal family. Tokugawa Ieyasu was an important man because he was the founder of the shogun. And of the Tokugawa shogunate, which remained for more than 2 centuries. Peace in Japan remained until the Meiji Restoration. So you know how they have Pax Romana and a Pax Mongolica? They should really have a Pax Japonica, just so that, you can remember. Next in line of power in feudal Japan follows similarly with Europe. The daimyo acted like lords and knights because they were powerful samurai with lots of land. Half warrior, half nobility. Then the daimyo would split up their land to the lesser samurai, and then the land would be divided again to the peasants. And at the same time in medieval Europe, Japan's hierarchy was based on land for loyalty exchange. And judging by the happy chart, being a peasant was not very happy. The people during feudal Japan, like the samurai, had to follow the code of Bushido, which was about loyalty, honor, and courage, and if a samurai didn't follow his obligations, he would have to commit suicide. Pretty psychotic. And the woman in feudal Japan experienced even less freedoms than in Europe. At least during the Fujiwara period they had freedoms, while during this time period, freedoms were completely lost. Isolation. Between the 1600s and 1700s, Japan was incredibly successful from isolating herself from European colonialism. Japan was off limits, with trading only between China and the Dutch, and even then it was limited. It looked better on my phone. However, the wondrous Matthew Perry from the United States in 1853 decided Japan needed to open up her ports to the world again. Long story short, their isolation affected them from the industrialized world because they couldn't compete militaristically or economically, so their ports were open. And after the ports were open, the military, industry, and economy increased. A takeaway from Japan's isolation was the takedown of the shogun by the samurai to restore Emperor Meiji back into power. Okay, a few things to look back upon. During feudal times, the emperor was a figurehead, and now the samurai want him back in power to kick out the Europeans and go through a total makeover. During this era, Japan went through Japanese westernization, and afterwards, had emerged into a world power. So before, they were completely isolated, off limits, didn't want anyone entering, and then afterwards they become a world power. The irony is when 1876 comes along, the samurai who wanted the emperor restored eventually got demolished and participation for all males to enter the military service was produced. So you don't need samurai anymore. The Tokugawa period experienced the strengthening of Japanese imperial traditions, while the Meiji Restoration led to a period of cultural creativity and increasingly national identity. Nationalism was embraced even further when the government would put emphasis on military propaganda like victories against China and Russia. I referred to the Meiji Restoration to the Industrial Revolution because now the way to gain power wasn't based on how much land you owned or had, it was about innovating and creating. The Mitsubishi family realized an opportunity at hand and quickly created an industrialized urban company, still existing today. The Japanese realized, if you can't beat a superpower, become one. So in feudal times, it was about land, afterwards, opportunity. After World War I, because Japan was on the Allies' side and the Allies won, Japan's economy and military started to flourish. However, during the 1930s, the Depression hit and severely hurt Japan's economy and military, everything that was starting to go great. However, militarists thought that Japan needed to be an empire again, so it would pull them out of the sadness. Before and during World War II, Japan played two important parts. The invasion of Manchuria in 1931, which was pretty significant as one of the turning points of starting World War II, would eventually lead to an alliance with Japan. And during the war, having had nuclear weaponry bombed on two of Japan's cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Based on the actions of Pearl Harbor when Japan decided to bomb the Hawaiian islands. Conspiracy? I think yes. Japan today is a rapidly industrializing modern powerhouse country that kicks butt for having gone through the Industrial Revolution a century later and in isolation for nearly 3 centuries. Skyscrapers and endless beauty, Japan over time has blossomed into a country for tourism and business. The thing I love the most about the history of Japan was the country's ability to keep European colonialism away and have a true sense of national identity. Yay!